Hello and welcome to What the Fuck Am I Reading? It's been 2 weeks since I checked out with you and I have read a good chunk of books. Like, I'm so proud of myself. I'm back into reading and I'm so happy. Like, everything has settled down and I can be a person once again. But because I have a good chunk of books to talk about, let's just get started. So the first book that I finished in between these weeks, whatever, was She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chang, and I love this. It was so good, man. Like, it got me out of the reading slump. I devoured this book in 3 days. It has been so long since I finished a book that fast. Like, in the last 2 or 3 months, I barely finished anything in less than a week. So 3 days. It took me 3 days and I'm so happy. But basically this is kind of a long retelling. Is it just in my imagination? This village is attacked and the only survivor is this girl, and she decides to basically pose as her brother, and she basically becomes a monk. And I'm not going to say anything else. We also have several different POVs, but that one was my favorite one, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. It was really fast-paced for me. I've seen some criticism about it being slow and such, and I don't understand. Maybe it was my brain at the time, but I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I really like smart characters, and I just really like this, like, super witty, smart, like Sherlock type characters that have everything under control. It reminded me a lot of Ragnar from Vikings. I just really like that type of character, and I think this book delivered in that aspect. So I'm super excited. I cannot wait for the second book. Honestly, like, I just need it. I'm so sad that it took me so long to actually read this, but it was so good, man. Like, so good. I just really want to read the sequel, honestly. I gave this one 5 stars on Goodreads, but it's mostly like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. But overall, really enjoyed it. Really like it. I highly recommend this one. It's Asian-inspired fantasy based on historical events, and it's great. Honestly, it's great. Yes, my thoughts are very scattered in these books because I didn't take notes when I finished them. Yes. So the next book that I read after She Became the Sun was Spin by Robert Charles Wilson, and let me be honest, I really love this book. I thought that it was going to be like a hard science fiction novel. In some aspects it is, but there's so much like personal stuff here, like relationships, and I wasn't expecting that at all. I thought it was going to be like a super hard sci-fi book, but it wasn't. So probably my own expectations just tainted my enjoyment a little bit, but overall I liked it. Basically, in this one, even though it's called Spin, I thought it was something related with that, but it's not. Basically, a force field appears surrounding Earth, and time moves a lot faster outside. You get like these really complicated scenarios about like sending someone to Mars, but they have to just depart at the same exact moment because when they are outside, the time moves so fast. That is super cool. Okay, that's super cool. But then we have like a shit ton personal stuff with character growth, and I just didn't give a fuck about that. So, you know, I was a little bit tired about the girl in the bicycle, honestly, but I understand. It just makes this type of book like a bit more grounded. So it might be a good place to start for people who haven't read like a shit ton of hard sci-fi. It might be easier because of all that like contemporary stuff. So I think that might work with like that, but besides that, I missed a lot of like hard sci-fi elements, honestly. Like, overall I enjoyed it. I give it 3.5. It's a good book. It's not bad, but I was expecting like a little bit more hard sci-fi because that's what I really like, hard sci-fi. So that was a little bit meh, but overall it was fine. I'm not going to complain too much about it. Then I read another great book. This was The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, and I really liked it. I give this one 4.5. It was super enjoyable. The premise of this book is that things disappear Like you might be just like, I don't know, having some tea and then teacups will disappear forever. And then you have this memory police who is responsible for taking people that remember this stuff. And it's just super cool. We basically follow a writer and her editor is about to be just like kind of clean because he remembers some stuff. And it has more value besides like the remembrance thing. It has a lot of talking and I just really enjoyed it overall, honestly. We have like 2 different POVs, which really was messing with me at first because I listened to this as an audiobook and I was just like, wait, what is this scenario with the typing machines? What the hell? But it's fine. You get used to it. But yeah, I think that the best thing about this book is its premise, its main core. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Basically, I just don't want to tell you too much because I think it's a book that is better, like it's more enjoyable if you just don't know too much about it, if you just go in blank. So knowing the premise, you're good to go. I think it's super enjoyable. Honestly, I really like it. It's more like slow pace, more of a thoughtful kind of book. Probably why I like it so much, but still some things were missing. I thought that the ending was a little bit weak. That department, like I still like it, but it was, I think, like my least favorite part of the whole book. So for that, I just took it like I took 0.5 out of this. But yeah, I give it like between 4.5 stars. It's been really hard to rate books for me lately. I don't know why. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you're thinking about picking this book up, just do it. It's a great science fiction book. So I highly recommend this one. Then because it was gifted to me and one of my friends loved this book, I read A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I haven't read any of the other Naomi Novik's books because I always heard that they are very character driven. And I'm not a person who enjoys that. So I've never like felt the urge to read them, but I have to admit that I was indeed interested in reading A Deadly Education because of its magical school, dark setting. But there was a lot of controversy when this book came out because of some microaggressions that appear in the book. The author has taken them out in future editions. I'm not sure if my edition has it yet, but the audiobook definitely has them. So that should be like a range. And again, it is not my place to accept the apology of Naomi Novik, so decide for yourself what you're going to do. But yeah, I was gifted this one. I had to read it, basically. So in this one, we're going to follow Elle, and she basically lives in this school that, if you are not very careful, basically is going to eat you because it's filled with monsters. And she basically has to survive and made it to graduation. And for that, she's going to use the help of, what was his friend? Am I completely blanking on it? Was it Orion? Yeah, Orion was great. And their dynamic was the best part of this book. But overall, I felt like the plot was very weak. Honestly, like it was just basically about surviving. I didn't find Elle that like annoying. I know many people have. I think she was okay. Like, I understand. She was a little bit annoying sometimes, but overall, I could handle her. Like, it was fine. But yeah, the best part about this book was definitely the relationship between Orion and Elle. It was super funny. So yeah, that's my main takeaway from this. Will I read the second book when it comes out? Maybe, but I don't have that urge to continue the series, you know? Like, I finished it and I'm just like, okay, I enjoyed it, but I'm not like dying to pick the sequel or just like craving it. So I don't know what I'm going to do. It might be just like a book that I'm just like, okay, I'll read it if I want something like dark and just leaning more towards, yeah, dark magical school setting. I might grab it, but for now I'm sticking with a 3.5 star rating. I enjoyed it, but I don't think it was my favorite thing in a long shot. Like, it was okay. It entertained me enough. I thought it could be read like super fast. I read it in 2 days. It's not too long either. So yeah, definitely enjoyable. So if you're thinking about reading this one, please first check the reviews of POC reviewers first, and then make your own decision. But yeah, 3.5. I enjoyed it. Sorry, man. I just didn't love it as much as you. I'm so sorry. But then I did read like one of the best books of this year. The Most Romologies by Rick Yancey. Hang on in there. Like, I bought this book because my friend Monica reads. She is obsessed with this series. Like, every time that it appears on her bookshelf or in one of her videos, she's just like, oh, this series is so good, so underrated. So I bought the first book. And I totally agree. Like, this series is so good. I really want to get book 2, but this edition is not available yet in my country. It's out of stock. So I think I might buy like the full box set with the first 4 books. This is basically a historical fiction horror fantasy novel. I mean, a Monstrumologist is basically a kind of doctor that specializes in monsters. It's super gory. Like, this is so gory. This is categorized as YA in Goodreads, and I don't think it is, honestly. Yeah, the main character is really young. I think he's 12 or something like that. I mean, I get that, but it's so fucking gory, this book, and I loved it. There were some scenes, especially one in a sanatorium. Oh my god, I was so disgusted. And I loved it. Basically, in this one we have like a thing like a book within a book. The prologue is basically this policeman found this manuscript, this diary, and he's sending it to one of his friends to read it. And when he starts, it's basically the story of the book. It's the story of Will and the Monstrumologist. Then the epilogue continues that line and that timeline. But the inside is, it feels like Victorian, something like that, but it was so good, man. But basically they are trying to investigate these murders, and, you know, have some really terrifying creatures, and it was so good. So good. I give this one, I said like 4.75, but honestly, I'm bumping it up to 5 stars. I just really liked it. It's super addicting, and even though it's more on the longer side, it's almost 500 pages, it was super good, man. Like, super good. But yeah, 100% would recommend this book. It's amazing. Thank you so much, Monica, for this one. Like, it was so good, man. So good. Then, because I was in a mood for something like more post-apocalyptic science fiction, I read Wool by Hugh Howey because it's a must. Now that I'm one of his judges, I need to read this. But I already own this for like so damn long. I love dystopia in general, so I knew that I was going to like it. But basically, people are living in these silos and they are not allowed to go out because it's not possible to live out. They are just the only survivors of the earth. And that's like the main premise. So of course something goes wrong, you know, dystopia things. But I just really like it. It's just, I really like these tropes in general. So I just don't pay too much attention to anything. Just like, I'm just going along with the ride. I just really like it in general. I just don't want to spoil anything because everything in a dystopia is just like a spoiler, honestly. So definitely check it out for yourself. I know this is very well loved series, but it wasn't in my country at the time, so I had to catch up, basically. But yeah, I definitely really enjoyed Wool, and I'm going to continue reading Shift, which is the next like omnibus that I have to read. But yeah, I definitely really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Super enjoyable sci-fi read. If you just want like something fast and engaging, you're probably going to really like this. If you're not sitting down, just sit down for a bit, because I'm going to talk about a great book, and you better be ready because it has a 3.4 score in Goodreads. I don't know why, but this is Upon a Burning Throne. It's great. This was recommended to me by my friend Tammy. She read it and she said that it was great, that I should read it, that I was going to love it. Same thing with Grace of Kings and such. She was so right. This is basically a Hindu fantasy, kind of historic. It's not really historical, but it's definitely inspired by real things. So, Hindu mythology. It was so good, man. I just really love when books have like this trope of gods just meddling with humans. And this has like gods in every single chapter almost. We also have demigods left, right. We have like creatures descending from demons also. It's just so good. We're basically going to follow the story of 2 siblings. And even though we have more POVs, the main kind of storyline revolves around these two. The other characters kind of work around them too. So we're going to just talk about them. But we basically have Adri, who is born blind, and he has basically suffered from ableism his whole life. And we also have Shvet. I don't know how to pronounce it. But he was born an albino, so he has also been like very discriminated his whole life. These two are both the holy shit, I just can't find the word. They're basically declared the heirs, that's what I was looking for. The heirs of the empire, and they have basically to fight against adversity. There's a war going on. They are going to be they are the heirs of the Burnt Throne, which is kind of this huge empire that is kind of conquering everything. It's great. If you like battle scenes, I thought this book was slow, and we have just like non-stop battle scenes, honestly, and a lot of politics. It's great. I just don't know why people don't like this book, honestly. I just don't understand. And I don't want to say anything bad, but honestly, it just has everything to be like a good fantasy book. Oh, careful with animal death, and not animal torture, but a lot of animals suffer here. Careful with that. You know, we have elephants and such in the battles, and it's heartbreaking sometimes. But careful with that. We also have like a very soft magic system. It's basically about gods and asking wishes and such, which I enjoyed, honestly. Sometimes I just don't want like a super hard magic system. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend to check it out, honestly, if you just like mythology in general. It's just filled with that. I just really enjoyed it. I need to grab the copy of book 2, like right now. But yeah, I gave it 5 stars in case you didn't realize. Then last night I finished Murder in the Crooked House by Soji Shimada. This is my first book by them. They have a series that is called The Tokyo Zodiac Murders that apparently is super famous, and I will probably just jump into that one next. But this is basically a locked up room mystery. You have like 3 different locked up rooms murders. So you have like all the clues here to figure out what happens. You even have like a page before the reveal, like, oh, you have all the clues. Can you figure out who did it? And such, which is nice. But I found myself like a little bit bored sometimes. We have a lot of you know, when you're like watching a horror movie, that you first have like a piece of day-to-day life, and then you start with horror so you can connect with the characters first. This had that, but to a great extent. So we had like too much of the day-to-day life and the lives of these characters, and we have like so many different characters for being like a fucking murder mystery book. So sometimes I was a little bit lost, but overall I like it. I thought that the reveal was good, but this type of book, it's really hard to satisfy everyone, you know? Like, you really have to connect with the ending and the reveal. And I was a little bit iffy, like, I was okay with it. I wasn't mind blown by it. And this book like made one trope that I always laughed at, and I had never seen it in books. Like, it was something like, when we're talking about the perfect murder, we have like this weapon that is perfect, and I have never seen that actually used. I'm pretty sure this was probably the book that started everything with that shit. I'm not going to say anything because that will reveal the whole plot of the book. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was fine, but again, it was really slow at times, and I just really didn't know that much things, like, of the day-to-day life of these characters and their relationships and how things work. Like, it was a bit too much for my taste, and it dragged a little bit. But yeah, I think it could have been shorter, and I would have enjoyed it more. But still, it was quite good. So if you're looking for a locked up murder mystery, probably going to really like this. Locked up room murder mystery. That. Then the last thing that I read this week was Monstrous Volume 3. It was great. Like, I cannot tell you really this story about this book. Like, summarize it, it's really hard, but it's basically about stopping all gods from coming back. And we also have war. It's very complex, but once you get started, you get it. It's fine. But yeah, I really like Monstrous. The best thing about these comic books, about these graphic novels, is the art. Definitely just like the most beautiful thing that I have ever seen. These graphic novels, they are so impeccable. I love them. I really like this volume. I like this volume more than volume 2, but I still think that it dragged a little bit at the beginning, so I give this one 4 stars. But yeah, definitely a good one. I really need to go and grab volume 4, but yeah, overall it was great. But basically those were all the books that I read in these last weeks of August. Next week I will talk to you about Spirits of Vengeance. I will have probably finished it by then. I'm super excited if you cannot tell by my face. But yeah, that's going to be all for today. So have you read any of these books? In case you have, please leave a comment down below. But as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye.